Good evening, everyone, and welcome to In the Know with CaT Bobino. Today, my extra special guest is Dr. Deborah Heiser. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me tonight. I'm really excited.
Awesome. And so, Dr. Heiser is the founder of the Mentor Project, as well as a PhD in applied psychology, right? Development psychology.
Yeah, applied developmental psychology.
All right. And for the audience, can you tell us what that is?
Sure. So most people think of a psychologist and they think of someone who's looking for pathology in people, something that's wrong with you, and what might go wrong in life, and how to either avoid
Mhm.
that or how to deal with that. I look for the good things, the things we should expect, the things that we can look forward to. So just like if you're young, you can expect to learn to walk and talk. I
Mhm.
look at that through the entire lifespan, how what we have to look forward to and what we can expect through the entire life.
That's awesome. And so, what made you get into that type of discipline?
Well, I was thinking of going into clinical psychology, but I wanted to do research. And the reason was I used to visit my grandmother all the time. And one year she wasn't acting like she usually did.
Mm.
And she was irritable. She didn't want to do the things that she normally wanted to do. And she was in an assisted living in Florida. And, I talked to a person there and said, something's wrong with grandma. And
Mhm.
they said, don't worry, we're going to fix her. And they did. She was depressed and they were able to help her. And when that happened, I said, I want to do that. I want to work with older adults and I want to do that in some capacity. And it turned out that I was able to both learn research and clinical work with the applied developmental psychology degree that I got. So I had the best of both worlds with that degree. And I
Oh,
haven't looked back.
okay, that's amazing. Sometimes we have a path already outlined, and something happens in our lives or with our family, friends that kind of changes the direction of where we're going. And I find it happens quite a bit actually in STEM. And how do you feel about that? Like directions, STEM, and things that we think we want to do somehow gets derailed and we do something else that we actually love.
Oh, you're absolutely right. STEM is something that you don't know what you don't know.
Uh-huh.
And what I mean by that is I didn't even know that there was a such thing as a psychologist. I didn't know there was somebody who could fix grandmas. And so that's how it is with STEM in a lot of cases, which is science, technology, engineering, and math. Unless you're exposed to it and you see it, you don't know there's a career opportunity in that. You may not even know you like it or that you would have a passion for it. So, if you don't have the opportunity to see it
Mhm.
or hear it or be exposed to it in any kind of way, you may never have an opportunity to get involved in it. And that happens all the time with STEM.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I'm gonna go backwards a little bit. When did you find your interest in either STEM or psychology?
That really was with my grandma. I didn't have any interest in anything STEM related really beforehand. I liked computers, but I liked it in the way that I could never see what a career would be other than enjoying being on a computer and doing, sort of fun things with it. But it wasn't until I saw an actual outcome with
Mm.
my grandmother. And that really led me to believe that there was much more out there. A whole world opened up. It literally was like, when that happened. And that is, we're really fortunate in life if we have that opportunity that happens
Mhm.
for us. And so that opened the door. I went on to graduate school. I worked in a psychiatric hospital for many years. And then I started doing research in a nursing home, and that really was just a journey that just kept going, and it's still going now.
Wow. So your instance with your grandmother, was that in high school, junior high, or college?
I think I was like 19.
Mm,
So I had just graduated high school. But I would say that she was getting sick around when I was 18. So on the cusp of high school and college. So I had already not gone to college for anything in STEM.
mm.
And then had to go back to college, and do another major like a lot of people do and go for psychology. And then take the long road down to getting a PhD.
Yes, and, I oftentimes forget to say this, but we are live on Facebook and YouTube, and because we are live, you can put comments, questions, anything like that in the comment section, and it will pop up. We can see that, and I do have my friend DJ who has stated that exposure to STEM at young ages is crucial.
Mhm.
Yes, and so we definitely can agree to that, and that a part of the reason you started the mentor project, or what made you start the mentor project?
It's actually the opposite. It
Hmm.
wasn't thinking about kids getting exposure to STEM, which sounds terrible, but it really came from the opposite. I'm an aging researcher, an aging specialist, and I look at how we look at life from midlife on.
Hmm.
And so many people who are STEM experts and experts in a lot of different fields um, don't have access to mentees. They're holding all of this expertise inside,
Right.
and they don't have anybody to give it back to or to pass it on to. So I was speaking with Bob Cousins, he was the 2020 Inventor of the Year, and he's the guy who patented how we use credit cards on the internet, and
Mm.
he's done all these amazing things, and he wanted to be able to give back more. But when you're in a kind of a silo like that, it's not like you have access to kids.
Right.
Um, and Bill Cheswick, another one of the founding members of the Mentor Project, said when I was speaking with him about mentorship before we started it, "Hey, what would tell me how you got started?" And he told me, and that it was a journey for him. He was at Bell Labs, and he had all of this knowledge. He's one of the fathers of the firewall. And
Hmm.
he said, "I'd love to give back to kids in fourth grade before they get jaded. I'd love to teach them quantum mechanics, but
Right.
I'll look like a weirdo if I approach kids and start to say, 'Hey, do you want to do all these cool STEM activities?'" And I was
Right.
like, "Yeah, that would look pretty bad." So we started the Mentor Project because they wanted to be able to give back. And as a person looking at midlife and beyond, I said, "Well, we're built to want to give back in midlife. That's sort of
Mhm.
what we are developmentally supposed to do." And boy, these two people are saying they want to do that. So we started with just like 10 people who I thought, well, we're just a bunch of 10 nerds who are going to happily run around and mentor kids. But now, within a year, we had 80, then
Wow.
90, and now we have over 100. We only started in about August of 2019.
Okay.
And so we've really expanded to more than 100 mentors with, um, getting in front of about 100,000 kids in about 7 countries.
Oh,
So
wow.
really, we found out, in fact, this is needed on the mentor side. Mentors want to give back. People want to be able to give back what they know, and kids just eat it up. They want it, and they want more.
Yes, absolutely. From one nerd to another, what we what we see ourselves doing and everyday hands-on, or even just conversation wise, we definitely want to share that with the next generation. But finding the platform to share
Yeah,
it with the next generation is sometimes where we falter.
yeah.
So with the mentor project, is it, I know with the pandemic it might have made it very much virtual, but has it always been virtual, or were there points where you were going and doing it in front of students?
We never thought of it as being virtual,
Oh.
but we were only live and in person for about 6 months or 9
Mhm.
months before the, pandemic hit. So, Bill was, like, getting in his Tesla and driving all over the place, like, he would go to Brooklyn, and he'd go to Long Island, and he'd go to the Bronx, and he'd be
Mhm.
in New Jersey, and they had Wednesday was Ches Day. It was fantastic. We were going all over in person, and we really envisioned it being that. When the pandemic hit, we needed to pivot because there was
Mhm.
still a need. It wasn't like the mentors were like, "Oh, well." And that's when we really had a lot more people who said, "I wanna get involved." So we went, virtual, and that really opened up a door for us to be able to reach other countries.
Mhm.
Kids who, all of a sudden, kids in Argentina were hopping on online, and we had their teacher who became a mentor, and then we ran international hackathons. It just became a sort of candy store for STEM mentorship in a way.
That's amazing. That's awesome. So, pre-pandemic, the way that it was running, were you like you said, Ches Day, were everyone picking a day where they would go to a school and present? Or were the schools inviting you in saying maybe the kids are interested in robotics right now or a business or math? How did that go?
So it was different in every school. What was wonderful about Ches is he was able to go in and talk about pretty much anything with any age, and we loved it. So with Ches Day, the school called it Ches Day on Wednesday because that was when he would come in, and he talked about a variety of different topics. And he is a very hands-on person. So he was showing them, the how to make an app, or it would be, how to um, get something to monitor stop action, all kinds of different things. I could go
Wow.
on and on with the stuff that he was able to bring in and teach the kids and show them in person. But it depended on what the school wanted. High school didn't want that. They wanted to know kind of what was the journey, how did you
Mhm.
get to where you are, and what made you do what you do, and um, how can something be a career for me? That's when people are starting to think of, well, what kind of job am I going to go for, and would I want to go to college for this? So
Right.
it depended on the age group, but we do look forward to getting back in person because, quite honestly, it's a lot of fun to get out there
Yes.
with kids.
Doing hands-on projects, I mean, even just Coke and Mentos is one of those things that kids absolutely adore, and being able to see it in person versus online is always going to be more interesting, I think.
I agree with you. Although I do have to say, even when we were live, we did have the person who was able to teach how to build penny batteries from scratch was in Georgia, and
Okay.
um, his name is Larry. He was on a video screen on my iPad with a whole bunch of Girl Scouts. They all made it, and they'd hold it up to the camera, and they'd say, "Is this right? Am I doing it right?" And he'd say, "Move it to the left." And it did work out really well, and it was pretty cool. So we did see in the beginning that in some cases we needed to do it virtual if that expert happened to be far away.
Okay, that's awesome. And so someone like that, let's say, who is doing a penny battery, are you guys supplying the students with the all the materials that they need?
We brought it all. We
Okay.
had all the pennies. We did ask them to bring some things. We ran out of the good pennies that are needed. So we asked them to bring some pennies. But that was not a big deal. But yeah, we brought baggies of supplies, and it was really a lot of fun.
Right. And so when you're doing a project with kids in Argentina, so are you sending the materials? Are you giving a list to like the teacher to get materials?
So one thing we did, which was really helpful, was we did a hackathon with the kids in Argentina. And
Okay.
I will tell you that these were such smart kids. What we did was we combined, all the kids were home.
Mhm.
And so we combined the kids from Argentina with kids from the US for the first one. And they never met. They, two different languages, two different, hemispheres. And the kids did amazing. And in one case, they're a liberal arts school that was down in Argentina.
Mhm.
One of the they every single project was amazing, but in one case, a girl who was 14 years old sort of took over. She had never done this before, and she did a cybersecurity, led them on this cybersecurity thing that has eluded like all the professionals. Everyone came out of the woodwork to take a look at this. It was unbelievable. The another one to was doing something that would help people with strokes. It would be a
Mm.
bracelet, things that could actually be done and worked on. But I was really excited to see when a 14-year-old girl who had no exposure to STEM really came out, and she was the shining leader of a whole group of kids to do something really technical. Um, in her adorable pink bedroom, sitting on her bed, just leading them all. It was actually amazing.
That's really cool, and it goes back to what DJ said earlier, is that exposure at a young age, in her pink room, being exposed even virtually can open the minds and even open up the thoughts that we don't think about it, which is the amazing part of being in STEM and being a quote unquote researcher thinker is that, you know, when I was young, I could have never thought of Google. I didn't think anything about that or a
Me?
Tesla or even cell phones where you can go online, but someone thought of that. Someone thought that that was something we could do. And here it is today happening.
You're so right. And, I can't stress that enough what you just said, because we think that that if you're someone who does, verbal work in the arts and writing, that you can't be a science thinker, that you can't think of technology or engineering or math. And in fact, some of those really brilliant ideas that people write about or think about or articulating verbally, those can be turned into STEM projects. And we were able to
Absolutely.
see that with that one young girl, because it took her no time at all to come up with something really creative.
That's awesome. And so I'm not ignoring you guys in the chat. I hope I am going to say your name correctly. You're Ron Engelstein. Said the mentor project is spectacular. Yeah. And Tavari, he is saying, how great this podcast is doing. Um, and I appreciate that. Thank you. But yes, one of the things that I have often pushed or trying to talk to students about is the fact that your love for whatever it is doesn't change or negate a love of STEM. And quite honestly, whatever you're doing probably has a STEM base. You just don't know it. I
Mhm.
mean, the simple thing for me is cooking. Cooking is chemistry. You're going to change one material to another with a catalyst. So if you like to be in a kitchen, then you also like chemistry. And you don't have to separate the two.
It's true. That's a really good analogy. And we all like to eat at least 3 times a day. So
Absolutely. I am definitely I know for a fact that I will be eating right after this podcast.
and that's engaging in science.
Exactly. I can go on and be like, now we could talk about gastrointestinal, we could talk about the body and how it works, but all in all, I'm just gonna go eat dinner. But I'm gonna get back to you and all the amazing things that you're doing and being able to take what you love and sharing it with others has always been basically the backbone for getting more students into these fields. And so I know you've only been doing it since 2019, but have you seen like an uptick in students who are becoming interested in things maybe they didn't know they were interested in or going into fields that they weren't sure about in the beginning?
Well, I can say this. There's one mentee there. I'll tell you about a couple of our mentees. It was pretty cool because they're going into college now. So one is Eitan Gotian, and he came to us. He was kind of bored in his basement, kind of messing around with stuff that he had that was STEM related. and he had a great idea but didn't know what he could do next with it. Less than a year later, he has 2 patents, patents pending. And that was because
Wow.
he came and spoke with our mentors and they helped him do it. And we do that for free. Everything we do is for free. Most kids, first of all, say, "Oh, I couldn't do that." And second of all, it'd be too expensive. I have no idea how to start. But he was able to do it. Once you learn it, then you can do it yourself. You don't need
Mhm.
someone else. So he's going on to college. He's going on to UPenn. And, we're super thrilled. He's been written up in Forbes. He wrote
Oh,
an article in Nature. He's done all kinds of cool stuff. Another mentee, Elise Kane, she did a whole lot of podcasting and writing for us. So she actually was able to see the interesting side of, podcasting is a lot of tech. She had to
mhm.
learn a lot of the tech, but, it's not like you just turn on a button and you get going. There's a lot more to it, but you also have to have a storyline and you need to have something to say and it has to have meaning. So she was able to do all of that. She's now going to be applying to colleges this year, and we really expect her to do quite well. Um, we've had other, as I said, the kids in Argentina. They're continuing on, and they're doing more. They want to do more hackathons.
Oh,
Um,
good.
Sort of hackathon addicted. So, our students are really getting out there. They're getting written up in Scholastic, Forbes, Psychology Today, Nature for all the work that they're doing with us. So it's pretty exciting to see that. I don't think that they knew they could get to that level that they got
That's amazing. That's awesome, and I love to hear those success stories with our youth. So with your mentor project, you have mentors who are coming in, showing these different projects, things like that. Do you often pair one-on-one so someone could take them to the next level?
Yes. So in the case of some of the mentees, we do pair one on one. If you're writing a patent or you have a really intense design that you're working on, we might pair you up with somebody. And we may pair you up with several different people to work a one-on-one with because the
Mm,
areas of expertise may not overlap, so they may need to go to several. But they will get to work one-on-one as long as they need to. Some students don't want that. They want to ask a question. That's all they need. And then they're ready to go. And others take in the information passively. So they may
mm,
watch some of the videos that talk about how to do things and what has been done or journeys. That is very popular with schools, so they can show, why does an astronaut want to become an astronaut, or why did
right.
Irene Macbeth uh, want to work on the mission to Mercury, and what was it like for her? Those kinds of things. I will tell you a funny story, and stop me if you don't like it when I digress. But we went into a school with Irene, who is she was the lead tech on the mission to Mercury,
Mm,
and so we went into a school and the kids thought she was the flight attendant on the so they had no exposure to STEM or the idea that it wasn't an airplane that went there. There were no peanuts being passed around.
right.
The idea that a woman could work on a lead in that capacity, and she was the one who pressed the launch button. These are the sorts of things that we really were able to expose the kids to. That just knowing that, I think, opens somebody's eyes to say, "Wow, there are opportunities for me out there that I can."
Right. And it's so what's I don't know the word. I wanna say interesting or amazing or crazy how we have such high level people in STEM. When they walk into the room, no one knows who they are or, have no idea what they've done. And I say that as an adult or kids, because
Yeah,
they're not highlighted. They're not highlighted in the media. They're
I
not
know.
highlighted out and about, and they get kind of looked over, but they do such amazing things.
How many times have you swiped your credit card or gone on Amazon and used your credit card? Next time, say thanks, Bob. You know,
Right.
because there's a guy who did that. He made
Right.
it happen.
Right.
His name's Bob. So
Right.
just say thanks, Bob, every time you swipe your credit card somewhere. You're
Well,
right. We are unseen, and people go. We're on this right now, because there's a
Mhm.
firewall, and that you can say, "Thanks, Bill," every time you do that. You can
Right.
go on. But none of us think about that. We take for granted these things in our daily lives, that do have a name, associated with them.
Right. And even um just people who are out there and we just don't know. For instance, I'll tell you a funny story. The lunar eclipse that just happened on the 15th. So we have a museum out here called the Chabot Space and Science. They got the telescopes, all that stuff. And I went with Dr. Yvonne Cagle, who is an astronaut. And she was there. We were looking at the moon and we were talking about it. And no one knew who she was.
Right.
No one. No one knew who she was, what she did, and um on for her instance, she didn't really want anybody to announce that she was there because she wanted to see the eclipse. She wasn't, she was like, I don't want to everyone bombarding me with questions right now. I really want to be in the moment. But even when the first time I've met her a couple weeks ago and we've just clicked, but every time we go somewhere or we do something, I'm looking around like, do you not know who this woman is? Like,
Mhm.
goodness gracious. But other people in entertainment, things like that come around and, you know, they know who they are the moment they walk in.
Yes, you're right. I wish that it could be like that with, STEM, quite honestly, because they change our world, literally,
Yeah,
not just
absolutely.
figuratively. They don't change what we see visually in a moment, or change the way that we, are able to relax. They literally change our day-to-day activity. Our world is very different from the time that we were able to do things safely on the internet,
Mhm.
and from the time that we were able to make purchases on the internet. Our world became smaller. And
Right.
and so that's the impact these people who nobody knows their name or face have done. You're right.
Yeah, and they want to give back, they want to turn around and say, "This is what I did. How can I help you get to this point?" But we need more, I don't know if you wanna say teachers or parents, or who do we capture to get people like that in front of them, in front of the students?
I think that, the main thing is I will tell you this, that more people want to mentor um, you know, than anyone could ever imagine. When we think of mentorship, people think of the mentee, and then there's just like this elusive person that's faceless and nameless that you're supposed to reach out to. All of those people want to give back. They don't have the opportunity. So if there are more opportunities to connect with the individuals, and they're not all bunched together. It's not
Right.
like you can go to the Grammys or to the Oscars and say, "Okay, round up all these people." You know,
Right.
they're not in a same location where people can find them so quite as easily. But that's what we're trying to do with the Mentor Project, is round them up. Round up
Mhm.
all of those big giant brains that change the
Right.
world, and make sure that they get in front of the kids. Because
Right.
when kids do see an astronaut or someone else who did something really cool, they get very, very excited about it. They're not blasé about it.
Right, and even those of us who are kids at heart get very excited,
Right.
like, when we were at Chabot, because Danielle, she's in the comments, she said, "You were with the astronaut." Yes, and she was very cool, but we were standing there and a volunteer came over who knew who she was and was talking to us about the lunar eclipse and why the moon was red. This man who just, "I'm a volunteer, ask me a question," is an astrophysicist,
Yeah.
by trade. But people weren't asking him that many questions. They saw him just as a volunteer, which there's nothing wrong with being a volunteer, but they didn't realize this volunteer is also an astrophysicist and he can
Yes.
talk to you more about the stars than just the lunar eclipse.
There's one of our mentors, Gibor Basri, and he is an astrophysicist, and he's the guy who discovered brown dwarf stars. And
Mm.
he'll be sitting there on a Zoom, and you'll see him, and then he'll just slide off the Zoom, and then we'll find out he's on PBS Live at that moment, or whatever, like something. But he's just very blasé about it all. But you're right, if you get an opportunity to speak with someone, who discovered a star or who did something amazing like that, it's unbelievable. And they're out
Mhm.
there and they're mentoring. So isn't it just the coolest thing though when you get to say, "Oh my gosh, you did that." Just
Right,
tell me
right.
about that. It's so
Yeah,
cool.
he explained, it's I feel like it's something we know, but we don't think about, where he was explaining the lunar eclipse to the point that at some point there's a simultaneous sunrises and sunsets happening.
Yeah.
And that redness from the sunrises and sunset is what's being projected on the moon, which makes it red. Now, in my mind, being in California, I know that I'm not the only person seeing this sunrise or sunset,
Mhm.
but I don't think about that point
Yeah.
of view until you have someone like that who breaks it down and you're like, "Oh, that makes sense." And yeah, I was being the kid at heart like, "What?" Trying to look at the moon but also listening to him talk. I was like, "This is amazing."
Yes, it makes the world that we don't know a lot about become real and accessible. And you know, there's a person, one of our mentors, Neil Cummins. I noticed that there's a comment, maybe make science into the reality TV the kids are hooked on. Well, in Japan, they did that with Neil Cummins. He's an
Mm.
astrophysicist, and he has, I think, 21 or 23 books out. It's a lot. I mean, it's at a
Wow.
certain point, you stop counting. It could be even more. I don't know.
Right.
Anyway, but I know it's more than 21 or 20.
Wow.
They made him in a cartoon, an anime in Japan, and he actually is a famous person in Japan. So yeah, that should be done here, I think, because it was successful elsewhere. But if that's done here, I do believe that that's a fabulous idea that we could end up making STEM something really cool instead of the nerdy character that's put on TV. No kid goes, "Oh, I want to grow up to be a nerd."
Right.
That kind of looks funny. The way that they portray the mad scientist to be. Um, you know, I think that if we made it something really cool, instead of like the Real Housewives, the real scientists of
The real scientists of
Beverly
NASA.
Hills, or
Right, right, right. The real scientist of the planetarium. But
yeah,
yeah, that would be real dope. And that was actually, or I wouldn't say it was, that is my dream, is to do a television show, not necessarily Real Housewives, but a live show where I'm following someone in STEM and I'm showing you what type of job they have and what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. But when I was going into or trying to go into the television spectrum as a woman, I kept getting hit with sex sells, and we want to see you in a dress and heels in the lab, or we want to do a shopping montage before we do this. And I'm like, I would be laughed out of a lab if I had a dress and heels on. I mean,
yeah.
obviously you've never been in a lab if
I've
that's what you're
never
going
seen
to
like
tell me to
a
say.
sexy nurse in the lab look, but yeah, that's not a good. No,
It's
that's
not. It's
no.
not a good look, and it doesn't make sense, because it's just not how it goes. But that's been my uphill battle, which is why I haven't tried to do it as of recently, and I turned my thoughts into a podcast where I can interview
Yeah.
people in STEM, talk about who they are, what they do, because the whole point is to showcase you, your job, your work, things like that, so that the next generation who is watching or listening can be like, "Oh, I've liked that part," or "I've thought about my grandmother or grandfather when they were going through something, but I didn't think about psychology, or I didn't know psychology was an option, you know?" And, finger crossed one day this does still go becomes a television show. However, I still want to highlight people in STEM and show that these careers are an opportunity and an option.
Yes, you're right. They are. And the one thing that people don't know that they can't see, and I love that you highlighted, that see what people do, is that they don't understand that most scientists have really deep, meaningful connections with those that they work with. So a lot of office jobs, I worked in an office job. I felt like a lone ranger in my little cube, working all by myself. But in science, you're not doing that. You have to talk to other people, not
Mhm.
just in science, but in technology and engineering and all of these areas. People think that they're like just one person sitting in a room by themselves, but you have to talk to people. You have to collaborate. You have to mentor each other. You have to work together. And so you end up with a lot of really close friends that way. And
Mhm.
that's one of the cool things about having a job in that field is that you're sort of exploring and doing things with others. You're not by yourself. It's not a lonely career.
Right, and that, you never know who you're gonna meet, and I think sometimes people think that if you're in STEM or kids think that if this is what you're doing, like that's your whole life. You spend your whole life in the lab, you spend your whole life doing research or even collaboration, but that's not true. Like the people that I talk to also do gymnastics, they're DJs, they love to
Mhm.
cook, they love to travel, and that's the bottom line is they like the same things you like. They're the same person you are. They just found an interest in this. And
Mhm.
because and everyone's not an A student. You don't have to be an A student because once you graduate, no one asked you what your GPA was. No one
It's
asked their doctor, "What was your GPA when you graduated medical school?"
right.
And
It's
it's
so
pass
true.
or fail. Your
That's
doctor could be a C student. Go
that's
ahead.
very true. That's very true. Scary, but true. But um, you're very right. When you're creating with someone, it's just like music. It's just like anything else. If you're collaborating with someone to make a song or to do something creative, um, there's an intensity to that, but it doesn't matter what grade you got. You're there to do something different that you really can't learn in a classroom. That's often
Right.
the same with the arts. A lot of people are really able to understand the arts and the way that people get really into the arts, and it's expressed in a way we're really able to see that science, technology, and engineering are no different. It's that same sort of passion, people coming together. Instead of a song, it might be a new way to access something on the internet. It might be
Right.
something you put in your pocket, that you use every day, instead of listening to it on the radio.
Absolutely. Yeah, and so Danielle said, "I've thought of this often. What if the Kim Kardashian type was a scientist? It's a lure, more science trivia game shows. The cooking shows I'm hooked on, could actually show the science behind the cooking process." Now,
Mm,
there is a cooking show and there's a sports show that's like I think they show the physics behind the sports of, shooting a basket, and I think there is a science cooking show, but I don't know the names of those. But I get it. Yes. Now, the part about Kim Kardashian's, like, I don't think she's a dumb woman, and they just don't highlight her intelligence. And I think that's the difference that they need to do when it comes to TV is highlighting someone's intelligence as well as their assets.
yeah, I think that the process is left out. Like they think she just woke up one day and was famous. And
Right.
there was a process there that they don't show. And I have a feeling that there was a lot of hard work behind that. And that's something that makes it unappealing for kids to want to go into something that looks like you have to learn math or
Mhm.
something else because that process is hidden from the passion that we do when we embark on something. So
Right.
I agree with you. I don't think that she is a dumb woman. I think that we are not able to see that side. That side is kept from us as viewers.
Absolutely. Also, spy TV movies showing behind the scenes of how those amazing gadgets are made would pique interest. Yeah, I think so too. And I think, again, hopefully one day I'm a work back on it, doing the whole television side. If you know someone who can mentor me in television, I will take it. But I think if you Google it, you can see, green screen, how they make some of the Marvel movies and things like that. I don't believe they're going to show you everything because they don't want you to take it, but they will show you bits and pieces.
They do have some great programs for, and you can get a lot off of YouTube to learn a lot about that sort of thing, which is pretty cool. And you can learn about all of the other kinds of science, technology, engineering, math, all the
Mhm,
arts. You can learn anything off of YouTube, and from courses that you can take in communities nowadays, which is
mm.
really wonderful. Or you can come to us, and we can try to help you out too with anything like that. We're just branching out into the arts a lot more, because we've realized that there's a lot of overlap with a lot of these areas, and STEM has become STEAM in a lot of areas,
Right.
with the arts added to it. So there's also a lot of tech involved in a lot of, if you look at music and you look at the arts, there's a lot of tech involved in it. You don't see people hand drawing as much as they used to. A lot of it's done on computers and iPads, and a lot of, even if you watch the home improvement shows and things like that, where they
Mhm.
bring up the drawings of the homes, and it's all on a computer. And so that tech, somebody had to do that, to make that something that could come to life in an artistic format.
Absolutely. Yeah, I had a professor a couple years ago, well, quite a few years ago, I should say. She had a pipe that had the 2 holes on the end plus holes in the middle, and she would pump gas through it, kinda light it on fire so you have these flames that are all the same height until you play music. Then you can see the sound waves
Oh, I love
in the flames. Yes, I loved that thing.
that. Is so
Um, it's amazing, and but it goes to point where music and technology or science can come together because you don't think about sound waves when you think about music, but sound waves falls under the category, so to speak, of science.
cool. Hmm.
So, and then even the 1, 2, 3, 4 count is a lot of math.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's you're right. A lot of that is involved in all of it. We even brought writing into it. We have one of our mentors is the editor at large for Psychology Today.
Oh,
So
wow.
she helps with writers, people who want to write. That is an art form, and people don't
Mhm.
think of that, but it is. And a lot of scientists need to write more, so that they can articulate some of the cool stuff that they do. Um,
Right.
that's another area that we've branched out into.
Right. I had a different professor who was like, "Scientists are not, writers. So when you read a science article, do not look for the grammar, do not look for, the
See,
spelling, the punctuation."
she's changing that. She's making it accessible so that the scientists can write a lot, um, with a lot more ease. And you're right. There are different ways that if you're going to write for a scientific journal, you have to write differently
Mhm.
than if you're going to write a novel.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, we are starting to wind down, we've been talking for about 50 minutes, and the time goes fast for me when I'm talking about STEM. But as we wind down, where do you see or what do you see as next for you and the mentor project for like the next 5, 10 years?
So we want to continue to expand. We want to grow, so that we can reach as really and truly as many kids around the world as possible. So we're going to be working on expanding our website and our offerings, getting more involved in schools around the world, and really expanding even more in universities. We're still working with little kids all the way from
Mhm.
kindergarten, but we want to make sure that people who are coming out into the workforce are prepared and ready, to expand their horizons. Particularly, one area that we were looking at is entrepreneurship. Scientists
Mm.
often leave their big ideas on the shelves and they never
Mhm.
make it to market. And we want to make sure that anytime a person has any kind of a STEM idea, that it can make it as far as it can go. So that's where I see us reaching as many kids as we can, and growing the company to be something that hopefully everyone can say, yeah, I have a mentor.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I did see that you had did a TEDx talk. Do you see yourself doing more of those types of things, or do you want to do those things? Or excuse me, do you want to do more talks and things like that?
I do. I have a few ideas that I'd like to do for a couple of TED Talks, but We are getting a bunch of our mentors on the TEDx stage in TEDx Irvington this fall because I
Wow.
really am even more excited by the idea of getting some of our amazing STEM and art mentors out there to tell their story on the TED stage.
Well, they are more than welcome to tell their story on the Cat Bobino in the Know stage. So if anyone else in your mentor project or anyone you know want to get on the podcast, talk about themselves and talk about their work, they are more than welcome to.
I have a long list of about 100 people for you.
Awesome. That will take me into like the next 2 years. I love it. I will take it. Um,
Okay.
but that's great. And so as we are closing out, and Danya, let me see. Teachers using those movies as homework for kids to try and recreate or research the experiment slash gadget. I would have loved that. Yeah. I think in today's time with social media and how we can get in touch with each other and mentors, I think if you did challenge, let's say, a high school student and say, pick a gadget from Star Wars or Star Trek and try to recreate it, you know? That could happen, and I think I just saw Neil deGrasse Tyson said he made a Tazerac. I don't know, I know it's not a real Tazerac, but okay, there you go.
He's on another level. He is so
Yeah.
amazing.
He is in his own bubble. That's that's great, you know?
Yeah, he's
But
like a super genius.
yeah, yeah. So before we go, what would you like people to know about you or your business? And how can people get in touch with either you or the Mentor Project?
Well, you can find more about the Mentor Project at mentorproject.org. Check out our tabs at the top. You can, under the About Us, uh, look at a lot of our mentors, at least. Not all of them are up there yet, but if you go to the About Us, you can find out about our mentors. And we'll be placing up a whole summer series of events, so you can look at that. You can find us on LinkedIn at the Mentor Project, Facebook, the Mentor Project. You can find me at all of those locations as well. And mostly, I will say this: everything we offer is free, 100% free. There is no one who gets turned away. But we are an organization that works off of sponsorship for our projects. So if you have a project that you would like to sponsor, we'd love that. And if you'd like to donate, we'd love that too, because literally everything is free for everyone.
That's awesome. I might go on there and try to find a mentor for myself. I still need some help.
We all do. We never stop needing a mentor. Our mentors mentor each other all the time. We never, you never grow out of needing a mentor ever, ever, ever.
You're right. I think, and I will always be a consummate learner. And I think,
That's great.
the smart thing to do is just be open-minded
I agree.
and, be able to listen and take in what somebody else is saying. So you never know what you're going to learn. With that said, if you just wait as I close out, and I will chat for you just a second. But everyone who joined us on Facebook and YouTube and even LinkedIn, thank you for all of your comments and questions. Thank you for joining us. Make sure you check us out next week as we will be talking with the Brain Beauties, who are some scientists who work in the cosmetic field. And thank you all for everybody and what you're doing. Make sure you check out the Mentor Project. And if you want to see more, learn more about me, you can always go to In the Know with Cat Bobino, or which is my website, catbobino.com. And you can listen to this podcast on all major platforms. If you want to tell your story, send me a message. I'm so easy to find. Just go to catbobino.com. Thank you for joining me, Dr. Heiser. I appreciate everything that you have said and everything that you are giving to the next generation.
Thank you for having me on. This was a real pleasure today. The highlight of my day.
Thank you. All right, everyone. Have a great Wednesday.